Hi, this is Ian, and welcome to my 30 days of Taiko skills. This is day one, and I'm talking about Kuchishoga. So, if you're a Taiko player, you're probably very familiar with Kuchishoga, this system of vocalizing patterns or Taiko sounds to teach and learn this material. The literal translation from Japanese is mouth song, and it's something that's pretty ubiquitous for traditional and more contemporary taiko playing. So today I thought I would talk about three main points that I think are important for kuchishoga and how I find them useful. The first point is that I think it's important to know that there's no one single standardized kuchishoga system for taiko. If you travel all around Japan, you would probably find all different kinds of syllables, different ways to say these patterns and to transfer these musical ideas, depending on the context, depending on what kind of traditional festival music or other styles of folk traditions. So, in a way, it's a really good idea to maybe investigate some of these other traditions to see if there's something interesting and inspiring for you to check out. Um, Instead of just doing your own familiar Kuchishoga method, perhaps there's some other styles that will give you some insight and maybe some new ideas on how to approach this. Number two is I think it's very important for accuracy using Kuchishoga. And I think, for example, when we use different sounds for different parts of the drum, we want it to sound like that. And that's the whole point. So there's a reason why we have a big drum. When we hit the center of that drum, we say don. When we hit the rim of the drum, we say ka, and the rest would be s because they sound like these sounds or rests. So it doesn't really make sense in this case to elongate a short sound. For example, the ka, you wouldn't say ka, or you might not say don, don, if the drum is going to resonate and go don. Same thing with different sized drums. If you had a small shimedaiko, you wouldn't say dong on that. You would say ten or something like that, something higher pitched and shorter, so that it accurately reflects the actual sound that the instrument makes. So I think that's important to think about the sound of the instrument as well as the way we sing the kuchishoga. Maybe another application for this number two idea is to not just the sound itself, but how do we use the inflection of the kuchishoga in the music? One example I can give you is to sing an Edobayashi shimedaiko pattern, and I'll try to add some extra inflection to it. And in this way, if I was teaching it to you right now, I would ask you to try to sing it as close to how I'm singing it as possible so that I can check your understanding of the inflection and the phrasing of the music before we try to put it on the drum itself. So here's a little example with some inflection on the Edobayashi Yatai shimedaiko part. Ten, 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 teke ten, teke ten, ske ten, ske ten, ten, tsu, do do don, ten, 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 teke ten, stetsuku, ten, ten, teretsuku, ske ten, stetsuku, ten, ten, teretsuku, ske ten, stetsuku, ten, ten, teretsuku, ske ten, teke ten, ske ten, ten, tsu, do do don. Okay? So hopefully you can hear that I'm not singing everything flat. Hopefully you can hear that the way I'm playing the practice pad here, the taiko part, is trying to reflect the way I'm trying to sing the phrasing of these patterns. So I think a lot of times, instead of talking about, oh, this one note should be accented, this one note should be quieter, try to make this more pointed. Instead of talking about individual little details, it's much more efficient and probably more effective if we just sing it and say, can you hear what I'm trying to sing here? And then try to check the understanding from the other person by having them sing it and see if we can get it as close as possible. And then if we continue to sing it in our heads or out loud as we play, usually it saves time and gets us much, much closer to the music, the way the music is supposed to be, versus trying to notate it out with every single detail notated, um, or trying to explain one thing at a time. I think it's just much faster and much more effective if we just sing it exactly the way it's supposed to sound. The third one is, for me, something I use a lot is using the Kuchishoga or vocal patterns as a tool for trying to understand how different parts of the piece or the ensemble fits together. So in a way, using the voice as just one other um, coordination or independence tool to teach myself how to play. So another simple exercise or simple example here I can show you, something I do a lot would be to sing a very simple common G pattern like ten teke, ten teke, ten teke. And then maybe I'll either try to play patterns from a song that has that G pattern, or maybe practice soloing over that and check my understanding of if I can do this at the same time. That means if I'm hearing this G pattern played by somebody else, I will know how all of my parts will fit together really well. So here's a quick example of that. Ten teke, 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 teke, ten 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 ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, teke, ten 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 teke, ten. Something like that. It's pretty challenging to do if you're just trying to improvise a solo like I was doing just now. The reason I can do this is probably because when I started doing this years ago, I probably just started with a simple ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke. Did that until I felt very solid with that. And then maybe I would do the offbeats. Ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke. Just play that over and over until that felt solid, and then gradually increase the complexity until I went through a whole slew of different patterns. Um, One by one, I learned how to play it against my vocalized G pattern. And then eventually I started to combine them. And then it got to the point where now I can do a simple improvisation on one drum while singing something like that. So, um, of course, we can always take it and get much, much further in complexity. And that's something that I would have to keep practicing. There will be some point where I improvising with that exercise, and something will throw me off, and I'll go back and try to work on that and see if I can correct that glitch so that I can keep doing more and more uh, complex or different ideas that come to my mind spontaneously. The final example I can think of with this idea of using it toward music and understanding how parts fit together would be to sing the melody. So, going back to the Edobayashi example, where there's a fue melody, instead of just using inflection of the taiko part like I just did earlier, I might sing the taiko kuchishoga patterns, but use the pitches or the melody of the fue underneath it so I know how both parts fit together. This is a great way to memorize music so that you know how your part, if you're playing a rhythmic part, you know how that fits together with a melodic part. It's a very good exercise. It's one thing if you can hear it and play along, it's another if you can sing it and play along. So here's an example of the same section. Ten, 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 teke, ten, ske, ten, zi, do, do, don, ten, teke, ten, stetsuku, ten, teretsuku, ske, ten, stetsuku, ten, teretsuku, ske, ten, stetsuku, ten, teretsuku, ske, ten, teke, ten, ske, ten, zi, do, do, don. Okay, so it's these concepts, just kind of scratching the surface of all that is out there. I think sometimes Kuchishoga could be just taken for granted as, oh yeah, it's the way that we teach beginners how to play taiko. A lot of times when I'm teaching classes or workshops, a lot of times there's either a discomfort for singing patterns or maybe a lack of prioritizing the importance of Kuchishoga. But to me, it's one of the most important things we can continue to do in our growth as teachers and learners. And I think it's a very, very powerful tool that should not be underestimated. So anyway, hopefully you got something out of this, and that was a little bit about Kuchishoga. Hope you, yeah, hopefully that was interesting, and I will see you on the next one.